Diane Keaton, the Oscar-winning actress who redefined women's roles both on and off-screen for over 5 decades, has passed away at 79. As tributes pour in celebrating her iconic performances in Annie Hall, the Godfather trilogy, and dozens of other beloved films, shocking revelations about her fiercely private life have begun to emerge. Truth so carefully guarded that even her closest collaborators never suspected them. Diane wasn't just private. She was strategic about her image in ways nobody realized, revealed a longtime friend who worked with Keaton on multiple films. What the public saw, the quirky fashion, the self-deprecating humor, the chosen singlehood was authentic, but it was also a carefully constructed wall protecting truths that would have stunned her fans. In the days following her death, a series of revelations from her unpublished memoir, interviews with her inner circle, and previously sealed correspondence have painted a dramatically different picture of the woman behind the nervous laugh and oversized glasses. From secret romances that shaped cinema history to hidden talents that rivals envied, Keaton's life contained dimensions that reshape our understanding of her entire career. Today, we're counting down the 10 most shocking secrets Diane Keaton took to her grave. Revelations that transform our understanding of an actress whose seemingly transparent personality concealed depths no one suspected. These aren't just celebrity gossip. They're genuine insights into a complex woman who shaped American cinema while keeping her true self hidden behind the characters she so memorably brought to life. But first, let's explore the most stunning revelation of all. How Keaton's most famous role, the one that defined her public image for 50 years, came from a place far more personal than anyone ever realized. Nervous at all ever? No. Diane Keaton doesn't get nervous. I'm very nervous right now. My heart's beating very fast. It is not. Why would Diane Keaton be nervous ever? Because number 10, the real Annie Hall was her identical twin sister. For half a century, film critics and fans have debated how much of Keaton's Oscar-winning performance as Annie Hall was acting and how much was simply Diane being herself on screen. The stammering speech patterns, the quirky fashion sense, the endearing neurosis, all seem to be extensions of Keaton's authentic personality. The truth revealed in her private papers is far more complex and heartbreaking. Annie Hall wasn't Diane playing herself. It was Diane playing her twin sister Anne, who died when they were teenagers, disclosed a family member who requested anonymity. The mannerisms, the clothing style, even the lad catchphrase, those all belonged to Anne originally. The performance that made Diane famous was actually a private tribute to the sister no one knew existed. According to multiple sources now speaking publicly, Keaton was born Diane Hall, her real surname, which she later changed to her mother's maiden name, alongside an identical twin sister named Anne. Following Anne's death from leukemia, when the girls were 16, Keaton rarely spoke of her sister publicly, processing her grief instead through her craft. When Woody Allen was developing the character with her, Diane began incorporating elements of Anne's personality, explained a film historian who has studied Keaton's career extensively. What began as improvisational character work became a full embodiment of her lost sister. Allen, not knowing the true source, simply incorporated these elements into the script, inadvertently helping Keaton create the most personal performance in modern film history. This revelation transforms our understanding of not just Annie Hall, but Keaton's entire career trajectory. Her famous fashion sense, the menswear-inspired looks that launched a global trend, wasn't merely an artistic choice, but a living connection to her sister, who had first experimented with wearing their father's clothes as a teenager. Diane never corrected people who assumed Annie Hall was just an exaggerated version of herself, noted a costume designer who worked with Keaton on multiple films. The truth was too painful, too private. But those who knew her well understood that whenever the topic came up, she would deflect with humor rather than engage directly. A classic Keaton defense mechanism when something cut too close to the bone. This hidden inspiration adds profound poignancy to what was already considered one of cinema's most authentic performances. What appeared to be Keaton simply being herself was actually a complex act of remembrance, bringing her lost sister back to life through the medium that had given her own life meaning. Sleeper was funny and the little drummer girl was a bomb. Yeah. And that's really kind of number 9. The secret romance with Warren Beatty that changed Hollywood. Diane Keaton's relationship with Warren Beatty in the late 1970s was never a secret. The two publicly dated around the time they made Reds together. What remained hidden until now was the true nature and extraordinary impact of their romance, which fundamentally altered the power dynamics of Hollywood in ways that continue to resonate today. What no one understood was that Diane and Warren weren't just lovers. They were secret business partners during a pivotal moment in film history, revealed a former studio executive who worked closely with both stars. Their relationship created a behind-the-scenes power base that changed how studios dealt with female stars permanently. According to multiple sources, now speaking freely, Keaton and Batty formed a clandestine pact after observing how differently they were treated by the same studios. When Batty discovered he was being paid nearly triple what Keaton earned for Reds, despite her recent Oscar win and comparable box office draw, the two devised a strategy that would leverage his industry clout to elevate her position. Warren began insisting on contract transparency and equal treatment in a way that was revolutionary for that time, explained an entertainment lawyer familiar with the arrangements. He would refuse deals unless Diane received equitable treatment, not just on their joint projects, but on her solo films as well. They kept this arrangement completely private to prevent studios from simply refusing to work with them as a pair. This behind-the-scenes alliance resulted in Keaton becoming one of the first female stars to receive profit participation deals similar to her male counterparts. A business breakthrough that her contemporaries benefited from without ever knowing she had pioneered it. The genius of their approach was that it never appeared to be activism, noted a film historian specializing in Hollywood power structures. Warren was perceived as a difficult but brilliant male star making demands which was acceptable. If Diane had openly fought these battles herself, she would have been labeled difficult and potentially unhireable. What makes this revelation particularly significant is how it reframes our understanding of both stars. Batty's reputation as a controlling perfectionist takes on new meaning when understood as partially motivated by a commitment to equity. Meanwhile, Keaton's carefully maintained image as somewhat scattered and non-confrontational functioned as a strategic misdirection, allowing her to accomplish concrete business objectives without provoking industry backlash. As one contemporary female producer observed, she helped create a template for how women could attain power in Hollywood without appearing to pursue it. Diane's skill in presenting herself as non-threatening while quietly securing groundbreaking deals may have been her greatest performance, one the public never witnessed. Welcome, Miss Diane Keaton. How are you tonight? I'm all right. I'm hiding behind my banks. Yeah. Number 8 reveals her hidden architectural portfolio, worth millions. While Keaton's passion for architecture and design was well documented through her coffee table books and interviews about her home renovation projects, the true extent of her professional work in the field remained concealed. What the public never knew was that she maintained a secret second career that rivaled her film success both creatively and financially. Diane was not merely an architecture enthusiast. She was a legitimate designer who worked under a pseudonym on major projects, according to an architect who collaborated with her on multiple buildings. She created this separate professional identity by combining her mother's maiden name with her middle name, intentionally distancing her design work from her Hollywood persona. Multiple sources within the design world confirmed that Keaton, working under this alternate identity, designed or co-designed more than a dozen significant residential and commercial properties throughout Southern California. These included several landmark buildings that later won prestigious architectural awards. A longtime friend familiar with both sides of her career explained that she kept this work completely separate from her public identity. She would literally change clothes, put on different glasses, and adopt a more businesslike demeanor for architectural meetings. Many of her clients never realized they were working with Diane Keaton, the actress. This secret portfolio, conservatively valued at over $30 million, represents a body of work that rivals her film achievements in both scope and influence. Several of her buildings were featured in architectural digests and design publications, with critics praising their innovative approaches, never knowing the mind behind them. A biographer researching Keaton's life noted how stunning it was that she managed two high-profile, high-press careers simultaneously for decades without allowing them to cross-contaminate. She compartmentalized these aspects of her life so thoroughly that even close friends from her film world had no idea about the scale of her architectural accomplishments. Keaton's determination to keep these worlds separate stemmed from her desire to have her design work judged solely on its own merits, without the distortion that celebrity inevitably brings. This commitment to authentic evaluation, even at the cost of public recognition, reflected a core integrity that defined her approach to both careers. The buildings were her legacy as much as the films, said a design collaborator who worked with her for over a decade, but she valued their integrity over her ego. How many people in her position would choose anonymity over acclaim? That was Diane, creating beauty without needing to sign her name to it. You're an artist. You're a great artist. I remember it, and I love it, and I love you forever. Number 7 uncovers the truth about her relationship with Al Pacino. Diane Keaton's on-again, off-again relationship with Pacino during the filming of the Godfather trilogy has fueled Hollywood speculation for decades. What the public never knew, and what Keaton revealed only through private correspondence released after her death, was the true nature of their bond and why it ultimately ended despite their deep connection. A friend close to both actors during that period revealed that their relationship was far from the casual romance portrayed by the press. They were engaged twice, lived together for nearly 3 years in total, and came much closer to marriage than anyone realized. What ultimately kept them apart was not a lack of love, but something far more complex. Letters Keaton wrote to her sister in the late 1980s revealed that the relationship foundered primarily because of Pacino's insistence that she give up acting after marriage. This demand struck at the core of her identity, though she seriously considered it because of the depth of her feelings for him. A colleague who worked with both actors explained that Pacino held very traditional views about family that contradicted his artistic persona. He wanted Diane to step away from film and focus on creating a family. For someone who had fought so hard to establish herself as more than just a pretty face, this presented an impossible choice, yet she nearly made it. The correspondence shows that Keaton even turned down several major roles in the early 1980s while contemplating Pacino's ultimatum, a period previously attributed to a lack of strong scripts rather than a personal crisis about her future. A film historian noted that her Oscar-winning performance in Reds came at the precise moment she chose her career over her relationship. The emotional depth of that performance, the portrayal of a woman torn between love and self-determination, was not merely acting. It was Diane working through the most difficult decision of her life. The letters further revealed that Pacino and Keaton maintained a complex connection long after their romantic relationship ended. Pacino served as a trusted advisor on her projects, while Keaton helped him through personal struggles that never became public. According to a director who worked with both actors, they formed a different kind of partnership than the one they originally envisioned, less conventional, but ultimately more supportive of who they truly were. Their ability to transform romantic heartbreak into lifelong friendship speaks to an emotional maturity that neither receives enough credit for. This revelation reframes many of Keaton's career choices in the 1980s and adds poignant context to her performances in films centered on sacrifice and difficult decisions. The woman who became an icon of independence had come far closer to choosing a traditional path than anyone ever suspected. So listen, you drive. Do I drive? No. Oh, I got a problem with driving. Oh, you do? Yeah. Number 6, her secret role in saving Woody Allen's career. The professional partnership between Diane Keaton and Woody Allen produced some of the most celebrated films of the 1970s, from Annie Hall to Manhattan. What remained hidden until now was Keaton's pivotal behind-the-scenes role in salvaging Allen's career at its lowest point, an intervention that fundamentally altered American film comedy. Woody's early films before Annie Hall were struggling commercially and critically, explained a producer who worked on several Allen projects. After Sleeper underperformed, the studios were ready to write him off as too niche, too intellectual. It was Diane who fought for his vision and literally rewrote sections of Annie Hall to make it accessible without compromising its essence. According to multiple sources now speaking freely, the original script for Annie Hall, then titled Anhedonia, was a far more experimental, fragmented, and inaccessible film that studio executives were prepared to shove after seeing early footage. Keaton, recognizing both its problems and its potential, initiated a series of emergency rewrites. Diane was the bridge between Woody's cerebral comedy and what mainstream audiences could connect with, noted a screenwriter familiar with early drafts of the script. She added the emotional thruffin that was missing, pushed for the romantic elements that gave the film its heart, and convinced Woody to cut nearly 40 minutes of philosophical digressions that would have alienated viewers. This intervention was kept secret at Keaton's insistence. She recognized that Allen's reputation as a singular or was crucial to his artistic identity and continued ability to secure creative control. Taking public credit for her contributions would have undermined the very career she was working to save. She understood Woody's ego required him to be seen as the sole visionary behind his films, said a casting director who worked on multiple Allen projects. Rather than challenge that, she found ways to enhance his work while letting him maintain that image. It was an extraordinary act of generosity that prioritized the work over personal recognition. The success of Annie Hall, which won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, established Allen as a major director and created the template for all his subsequent work. What no one realized until now was how close that breakthrough came to never happening, and how directly Keaton's uncredited contributions shaped what is now considered a watershed moment in American film comedy. Diane's fingerprints are all over the aspects of that film that resonated most deeply with audiences, observed a film scholar who has studied Allen's work extensively. The emotional honesty, the accessible neurosis, the balance of intellect and heart, these elements became hallmarks of his most successful work, and they came directly from her influence. This revelation transforms our understanding of one of cinema's most celebrated creative partnerships, suggesting it was far more collaborative and interdependent than the public narrative acknowledged. And that Keaton's role extended far beyond her on-screen performance to the fundamental shaping of what would become Alan's distinctive voice. Horrible. It was of course the lowest point in my life. And here's what I think about what it is to number 5. The hidden health battle she fought for decades. Throughout her career, Keaton projected an image of boundless energy and vitality, maintaining a rigorous work schedule well into her 70s. What remained entirely hidden from public view was her decadesal-long battle with a rare form of rheumatoid arthritis that caused her constant pain and required increasingly elaborate accommodations on film sets. Diane was diagnosed in her early 40s, right around the time she made Baby Boom, revealed a medical professional who worked with the actress for many years. She made an extraordinary decision to keep it entirely private, not just from the public, but from almost everyone she worked with professionally. This secrecy was motivated by Keaton's well-founded fear that knowledge of her condition would limit her career opportunities in an industry already unforgiving to aging women. Instead of disclosing her diagnosis, she developed elaborate workarounds and preparation rituals that allowed her to perform without revealing her physical limitations. She would wake up 4 hours before call time to begin a regimen of exercises, medications, and treatments that would give her mobility for the day's shooting, explained a longtime assistant. Between takes, she'd disappear to ice inflamed joints or receive emergency treatments. The baggy clothing style she made famous wasn't just a fashion choice. It helped conceal medical devices and compression garments she often needed to work. Directors who worked with Keaton noticed her insistence on minimal takes and careful blocking, but attributed these preferences to artistic method rather than physical necessity. Her reputation for extensive preparation and script memorization was partly driven by the reality that she couldn't afford the physical toll of repeated takes. What's remarkable is that some of her most physically demanding roles, the physicality in Something's Got to Give or First Wives Club, came when her condition was actually at its worst, noted a physical therapist who worked with her. She would be practically immobile the day before shooting, undergo intensive treatments, then perform these scenes that required such precise timing and movement, then collapse when the cameras stopped rolling. This revelation adds extraordinary dimension to Keaton's career achievements, suggesting that her performances involved not just artistic skill, but physical courage and determination that went completely unrecognized. It also explains her famous reticence about certain aspects of aging. She wasn't being vain, but strategic, knowing that any acknowledgement of physical limitation would be magnified by her undisclosed condition. She never wanted pity or special treatment, said a director who worked with Keaton on multiple films. More importantly, she never wanted audiences watching her performances through the lens of her diagnosis. She wanted her work judged on its merits, not graded on a curve because of her health challenges. This insistence on being evaluated on equal terms with her peers despite facing obstacles they didn't, speaks to a core principle that guided Keaton's entire career. A determination to succeed or fail based on her work alone without explanations or excuses. I was just gonna give you a kiss alone. Oh, number 4. The family secret that shaped her career choices. Diane Keaton's decision never to marry despite relationships with some of Hollywood's most eligible men has often been framed as a feminist choice for independence. While that characterization isn't entirely wrong, private journals released after her death reveal a more complex motivation rooted in a family secret she protected throughout her public life. Diane's choice not to marry wasn't abstract or ideological. It was a direct response to a childhood trauma she never discussed publicly, disclosed a family friend who was among the few aware of the full story. Her father lived with undiagnosed bipolar disorder, a condition that created a deeply unstable and volatile home environment. From an early age, she witnessed firsthand how mental illness could radically alter relationships, an experience that profoundly shaped her views on commitment. Journal entries written over several decades reveal that Keaton's father endured intense manic episodes followed by severe, debilitating depressions throughout her childhood. These conditions were poorly understood and largely untreatable in suburban America during the 1950s. Throughout this period, her mother worked tirelessly to maintain an outward appearance of normalcy while privately managing increasingly difficult and overwhelming situations at home. Diane later wrote extensively about observing her mother's identity slowly erode as it became entirely consumed by the responsibility of managing her father's illness, according to a mental health professional who reviewed the journals with the family's permission. As a young woman, she made a deliberate decision that she would never allow her own sense of self to be absorbed or lost within a relationship in the same way. These formative family experiences directly influenced Keaton's career choices, particularly her inclination to portray complex, flawed women rather than idealized romantic characters. Her deep understanding of psychological complexity gave her performances a distinctive depth that set her apart from her contemporaries. A film critic who has studied Keaton's career observed that one can trace a clear connection between her family history and roles such as Kay in The Godfather or Renata in Interiors. Her remarkable ability to depict women facing impossible circumstances with both vulnerability and resilience stemmed from lived experiences that most people never knew she carried. The journals also reveal that Keaton's later decision to adopt children was closely tied to this personal history. She was determined to create a home environment that was stable and predictable, fundamentally different from the uncertainty of her own upbringing. Her choice to become a single mother was not a rejection of family itself, but rather a carefully considered way to build one according to her own terms. A childhood friend who remained close to Keaton throughout her life recalled that she wrote repeatedly about breaking the cycle. She believed that understanding her father's untreated condition gave her the awareness and tools to create something healthier for her own children. Her decision to parent alone was not driven primarily by independence, but by control, ensuring that her children would never endure the instability she once experienced. This broader context adds a powerful new dimension to what has often been described as Keaton's quirky nonconformity. What appeared to be an actress choosing an unconventional path was, in reality, a woman making thoughtful, deliberate decisions to foster stability and psychological well-being, guided by hard-earned wisdom rooted in her earliest life experiences. Music. Number 3, the music career that almost was. Long before she delighted audiences with her singing in Annie Hall and later films such as And So It Goes, Diane Keaton was actually on track to become a professional singer. Although she ultimately abandoned that career path in favor of acting, she continued to develop her musical abilities privately throughout her life. In doing so, she created an extensive collection of recorded work that very few people ever knew existed. Diane was originally training as a singer before shifting her focus to acting, according to a music producer who collaborated with Keaton on several secret recording projects. While studying at the neighborhood playhouse, she was also performing in nightclubs and cultivating a distinctive vocal style that blended jazz phrasing with folk influences. Multiple sources within the music industry have confirmed that Keaton maintained a fully equipped recording studio in her home for decades. There, she recorded more than 100 original songs and interpretations of classic standards, none of which were ever released commercially. This amounted to an entire musical career unfolding quietly alongside her film work. An engineer who worked on these private sessions explained that she would often bring in top-tier session musicians late at night after film shoots or during breaks between projects. These sessions were far from casual hobbies. She approached them with the same discipline, seriousness, and perfectionism that defined her acting career. The resulting body of work was described as extraordinary. Had it been released, it would have established her as a significant recording artist in her own right, entirely independent of her success in film. The reasons Keaton chose to keep this music private were complex. Early in her career, she feared being dismissed as just another actress attempting to leverage fame into a music career. Later, as her recordings grew more personal and autobiographical, she felt they revealed too much of herself to be shared publicly. A frequent collaborator explained that the songs became a private emotional journal through which she processed relationships, professional disappointments, family struggles, and other deeply personal experiences she deliberately avoided discussing in interviews. These recordings reflected a level of vulnerability she was unwilling to expose while actively working in Hollywood. In her final years, Keaton reportedly began organizing these recordings for a possible posthumous release, carefully cataloging and remastering tracks that spanned 5 decades of private musical exploration. Those who have heard portions of the collection describe it as revelatory, showcasing an artistic sensibility entirely different from her film work. This hidden archive represents a complete creative life that existed quietly alongside her public career. A music historian who reviewed some of the recordings noted that what is most astonishing is not only the quality of the work, but the discipline required to sustain such a high level of artistic output without any public recognition. Most artists seek validation from an audience, yet Diane created for decades with no listeners beyond a small circle of collaborators. This, he argued, speaks to a rare form of artistic purity. The revelation reshapes our understanding of Keaton's creative life, suggesting that her public career, impressive as it was, represented only one facet of her artistic expression, while some of her most personal and accomplished work remained intentionally hidden from the audiences who believed they fully knew her. I really like you. I really like you. Yeah, but I love you like you. Number 2, the screenplay Hollywood rejected for being too female. Throughout her career, Diane Keaton occasionally stepped behind the camera, directing films such as Unstrung Heroes and Hanging Up. What remained largely unknown until now was her decades-long effort to bring her most personal screenplay to life, a project repeatedly rejected by studios despite her established reputation and star power. In the late 1980s, Diane wrote a screenplay titled The White Room, which industry insiders regarded as one of the finest unproduced scripts in Hollywood, according to a producer who attempted to help Keaton get it made. The screenplay was an unflinching exploration of female friendship across multiple decades, funny, heartbreaking, and brutally honest in its depiction of women's experiences in ways that made studio executives deeply uncomfortable. Sources familiar with the script explained that The White Room followed three women from the moment they met in college during the 1960s through middle age. It traced the evolution of their relationships as they navigated marriages, divorces, professional triumphs and failures, motherhood, and serious health crises, offering a candid portrayal of women's lives that the industry at the time was unwilling to embrace. The script was widely noted for its unflinching treatment of female sexuality, aging, and ambition. Studios repeatedly offered the same feedback, saying it was too female-centric to attract a mainstream audience, according to a director who was briefly attached to the project. This reaction came despite Diane offering to star alongside Meyer Street and Jessica Lange, both of whom had already committed to the film. Even with 3 Oscar winners attached, no studio was willing to greenlight it. Keaton spent more than 30 years trying to get the film made, rewriting it multiple times and approaching each new studio regime with renewed hope. She reportedly invested significant personal funds to maintain the option on the underlying material and commissioned multiple budgets to demonstrate the project's commercial viability. What made the repeated rejection especially painful was that this screenplay represented Diane's most personal artistic statement, said a close friend familiar with the project. The story drew heavily on her own experiences and observations about how women's friendships sustain them when marriages, careers, and health fail. It was the work she felt most passionate about bringing to the screen. In a final ironic twist, multiple streaming platforms expressed interest in developing the project as a limited series in recent years, only to be told by Keaton that she would allow it to be made only as a theatrical feature. This stand on artistic principle likely ensured it would never be produced as she envisioned. She refused to compromise on the format because she believed the story's impact depended on being experienced in a single sitting, explained her longtime agent. Although she was offered significant money to adapt it for television, she held firm, believing that integrity mattered more, even though it cost her the chance to see her most personal work realized. This revelation adds a new dimension to Keaton's public image. Behind the self-deprecating humor and seemingly easygoing charm was an artist engaged in a decades-long battle against industry sexism. She was willing to sacrifice commercial opportunity to maintain the integrity of work she believed in, even when that meant it might never reach an audience. What is equally striking is the fact that that baby is truly amazing, and many believe this is the real reason she adopted her children. Diane Keaton's decision to adopt her daughter Dexter in 1996 and her son Duke in 2001 as a single mother in her 50s made headlines and helped normalize adoption for older single parents. What remained private until now was the deeply personal journey that led to this decision, a story far more complex and poignant than the simplified narrative presented to the public. Diane's path to motherhood began with a devastating pregnancy loss in her early 40s, a fact few people knew about, revealed a close friend who supported Keaton during that period. She was in a relationship that ended partly because her partner was unwilling to have children. When she discovered she was pregnant after the breakup, she viewed it as unexpected fate, only to lose the pregnancy at 5 months. According to multiple sources close to the actress, this loss triggered a profound period of grief and reflection that ultimately led Keaton to pursue adoption, not as a celebrity lifestyle choice, but as the culmination of a deeply considered personal journey about what family meant to her. Few people understood that Diane had been researching adoption since her late 30s, explained someone involved in her adoption process. The pregnancy and loss accelerated a path she was already considering. She spent nearly 5 years learning about different approaches to adoption, speaking with adult adoptees about their experiences, and questioning her own readiness and motivations before moving forward. Keaton's journals reveal that she was particularly concerned about adopting as a public figure and took extraordinary measures to ensure her children would not become celebrity accessories or public curiosities. She established strict boundaries around their privacy and maintained them throughout their childhoods. She wrote extensively about her fear that her fame would distort their development, noted a childhood development specialist who advised her. To counter this, she created elaborate systems to normalize their experiences, from using her mother's last name for school registrations to establishing homes in communities where her celebrity was not central to how people interacted with her. Perhaps most revealing is Keaton's documentation of how motherhood transformed her creative choices. After adopting her children, she deliberately shifted toward more commercial projects with shorter shooting schedules and greater financial security, choices often criticized by film purists as artistic compromises. In her private writing, she made it clear these were conscious trade-offs, said her former business manager. She wrote about learning from her own mother's experience how financial insecurity created stress that affected family dynamics. Determined to provide both stability and presence for her children, she chose roles that were not always critically prestigious. This context reshapes our understanding of the later phase of Keaton's career. The actress who had once been fiercely devoted to artistic integrity made an equally principled choice to prioritize her children's well-being over critical acclaim in her later years. Motherhood was not a late-life whim or a response to Hollywood's limited roles for older women, emphasized a longtime friend. It was the fulfillment of a dream she had carried and carefully developed for decades. It was a dream she pursued with the same determination she brought to every other aspect of her remarkable life. As these 10 revelations about Diane Keaton's private life come together, a more complete portrait emerges of an extraordinary woman who was far more complex, strategic, and multifaceted than her public image suggested. Behind the quirky, self-deprecating persona that charmed audiences for 5 decades stood a fiercely determined artist who navigated the brutal realities of Hollywood while protecting her authentic self from public consumption. What makes these revelations especially significant is how profoundly they transform our understanding of Keaton's contributions. She was not simply a talented actress who created memorable characters. She was an architectural designer whose buildings stand across California, a musical artist with a largely hidden body of work, a creative partner who helped shape iconic films without receiving credit, and a woman who overcame profound personal tragedy and physical challenges without ever seeking accommodation or pity. Perhaps most remarkably, she achieved all of this while maintaining a public persona that felt honest, authentic, and transparent. The quirky, nervous energy that became her trademark was never manufactured. It was entirely genuine, yet it represented only one side of a woman who contained far more depth than she ever allowed the public to see. Gaining insight into these hidden dimensions of Keaton's life does not lessen her legacy in any way. Instead, it enriches it immeasurably. The woman who appeared to stumble through life with charming awkwardness was, in truth, navigating it with extraordinary clarity and purpose. The actress who seemed to embrace quirky individualism was actually making deeply thoughtful decisions shaped by personal experiences that very few people truly understood. Diane Keaton's true genius extended far beyond her acting talent. It lay in her ability to present a public self that felt completely authentic while still preserving sacred private spaces in her life. In an industry that often demands total access to its stars, she established firm boundaries that protected her essential selfhood, while still offering audiences a figure they could genuinely connect with and love. As we reflect on her remarkable career, from her Oscar-winning performance in Annie Hall to her late-career renaissance in films like Something's Got to Give, we can now fully appreciate the scope of her achievements. She was not merely portraying complex, independent women facing difficult choices on screen. She was living that reality herself with grace, humor, and fierce determination. Diane Keaton's passing brings the final chapter to a close on one of Hollywood's most beloved and distinctive personalities. Yet the revelations that have surfaced since her death open a deeper understanding of the complex, brilliant woman behind the oversized glasses and signature laugh. These 10 secrets do not diminish the Diane Keaton we believed we knew. They reveal that she was even more extraordinary than we ever realized. The woman who appeared to embrace quirky individualism was, in fact, navigating life with clear-eyed purpose, making carefully considered choices grounded in personal values and experiences few could comprehend. As we remember Keaton's contributions to film, fashion, and culture, we can now appreciate the remarkable life that existed beyond the characters she portrayed. She was an architect, a musician, a writer, and a mother, someone whose creative expression extended far beyond the roles that made her famous. If you found these revelations about Diane Keaton's hidden life enlightening, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos that explore the untold stories behind Hollywood's most fascinating figures. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about which of these secrets surprised you the most about the Diane Keaton you thought you knew. Thank you for joining us in this exploration of a truly original artist whose full measure is only now becoming clear, a woman who gave us so much on screen while maintaining a rich, multifaceted life beyond the spotlight.